Bonjour à tous. You are very welcome to this morning's Saturday session, which is on Leaving Certificate French, higher level. And my name is Maureen Banks. I'm a French teacher in Dublin, and I'm very happy to be here with you today to share with you the breakdown of the Leaving Cert paper for this year. We'll take an in-depth look at the written section, and I'm hoping to leave you with some correct predictions for this year's Leaving Certificate. So let's take a look at the adjustments to higher level French for 2022. So the Leaving Cert paper is made up of 4 sections. You have the oral exam, which, as you now know, will take place during the Easter holidays. Then on the actual exam day, the first section of the paper will be 2 reading comprehensions. The second section of the paper will be the written section, and you will be given a break after completing this paper, and you will return to complete the 40-minute listening. I always have to warn my students to make sure that they return after the written paper in order to complete the listening exam. It used to be a case that it was before the exam, and now it's after the exam. So just remember that you have to come back and complete the written section of your paper. So the adjustments to the higher level exam this year will be pretty much the same for the listening comprehension. It is 40 minutes long. It's made up of 5 sections. And at this stage, you should have done plenty of practice with your teacher in school. For the written paper in section A, for the reading comprehensions, you would usually have had to do 2 reading comprehensions. And this year, you will only have to do 1. Candidates will be required to answer only 1 reading comprehension. They will do 1 reading comprehension, and the question will be marked out of 60 as per previous years. However, you won't be doing 2 reading comprehensions out of 120. It will just be out of 60 this year. In section B, which is the written section, you will be required to answer 2 questions, which was previously 3 questions. In question 1, you will be given an option of A or B or C. And then you will answer 1 other question from questions 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. So I hope that's clear to you. Do not answer 2 questions from question 1 and think that you are finished. 1 question from question 1, that will be worth 40 marks. And then 1 question from questions 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, which is worth 30 marks. So as you can see, you're being given a lot of choice this year. Generally, in question 1, it will be an opinion piece that will be a response to the theme of one of the reading comprehensions. So if your question 1 reading comprehension is about homelessness, let's say, there will most likely be an opinion piece question on homelessness in question 1. In questions 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, you may be given the option of doing a Journal Intime, a réussir, or possibly another opinion piece or a reaction piece. Today, I'm going to focus on specifically the opinion piece and the Journal Intime. I'm not really going to talk about the réussir. I find that it is quite technical and quite difficult to answer and do well in. You must have a very, very good comprehension of the French language and a really good ability to jump between the past tenses in order to do well in the réussir. The total mark for the written paper, excluding the listening, this year will be 130 marks. So 60 for a reading, 40 for your first written piece, and 30 for your second written piece. And this is different to previous years where the entire paper was out of 220 marks. One of my tips for you is that you will have 2.5 hours to complete the exam. So I am advising you to answer both reading comprehensions because you will have so much time. And this will give you the opportunity to get the highest mark possible. And if you get 50 in one reading comprehension and 35 in the other, obviously the 50 marks will be what you will be awarded. If you feel that you still have lots of time, I would advise that you do write another written piece, but I would prefer that you focus more on perfecting your written production as opposed to rushing through one to rush to another. You can even take the time to draft an answer and come back, change it, annotate it, restructure it, put in different new words, try and enrich your vocabulary. So do take your time because you have plenty of it. So the layout this year, Section A, your reading comprehension, just to reiterate what you need to do. It's worth 60 marks. You answer one question. I'm advising you, read question 1, read question 2. Which one do you think you'll answer better? Okay, and go with that first one. Then move to Section B, answer your question 1, and then answer question 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. Okay, once you've completed essentially what is required of you for the exam, go back and maybe do the second reading comprehension or spend more time perfecting your written production. I do recommend that you do your written piece on a rough piece of paper or at the back of your answer booklet. Annotate it, go back, check for tense, check for idioms, check for proverbs, and that will give you the time then to try and build it, to bulk it up, not to include more words, but to think about what you're saying and could you say it better. So for this year's paper, you have 2 hours and 30 minutes in total. So use this extra hour to answer another reading comprehension and to spend even more time on the written section. For your first reading comprehension, spend about 30 minutes on it. It is worth 60 marks, so it's quite heavy, okay? For the written section, it's worth 40 marks. And again, spend a good half an hour on this section. And then for your third written piece, which is worth 30 marks, also spend 30 minutes on it. That only adds up to 1 hour and 30 minutes, but you actually have 2 hours and 30 minutes to complete the entire written paper. So that gives you an hour to play with, like I already said. And remember, like I said at the beginning, don't forget to come back for your oral exam, which takes place after your written and reading comprehensions. Okay, so let's take a look at le Journal Intime. Some potential scenarios that come up for the diary entry could be an argument with a friend, that you've won a prize, you've won money, that you have a new job, that you're going on holidays, that you're going to a concert, an event, or a party, that you're moving house, and that you're falling in love. All of these are subject to tense. So it may be that you went on holiday, or that you will go on holiday. You went to a concert, or you will go to a concert. The argument one has come up with an argument with a friend, or a friend is moving away and you're not happy, an argument with your parents. Another proposal for this year might be that something has been cancelled. So please make sure that you know the word annulé. La fête a été annulée. There was one a few years ago where it was New Year's Eve. You had organized a party with your friends, and because of the snow and ice, the party had been cancelled and you were very, very disappointed. So it's important to know emotive language here, emotional language, where you get to express your feelings. Make sure you have some good adjectives that will prepare you and help you in writing this to express being either happy or delighted, content, heureux, ravi, that you're sad or disappointed, je suis triste, je suis déçu. You're annoyed or frustrated. Je suis si ennuyé, je suis frustré. You're excited, you're in love. Je suis tombé amoureux, or tombée amoureuse if you're a girl. You're afraid, j'ai peur, je crains. You're fearing something. You have no idea what's going to come up. So it's really important that you have this vocabulary ready to go for when the question pops up. How do you write your diary entry? So one of the basic things that you need to know is the structure. On the top right-hand corner of the diary entry, you are going to place the date and the place that you are in. So if you are in Sligo and it's the 5th of June, you will write Sligo, comma, le 5 juin. The examiner will take marks off you if you leave out the le, and also if you write juin with a capital J. Make sure that your months of the year have a small j. Another common error I see students do is the cher journal. They will write cher in the feminine They will add an accent, they will add an E. Just think of Cher the singer. That's how I say it, Cher. So Cher the singer, and that will help you spell Cher. Cher journal. It's masculine. There's no extra E. There's no extra accent. Okay. That is on the left-hand side then, and it's your dear diary, comma. And you're going to start by presenting what is wrong, what's going on. Maybe something's right, something's wrong. You've won the lotto, you've had an argument. You're describing this situation in your own words. Where possible, do not copy the question. Try to restructure the question in a way that you're showing the examiner you know this vocabulary and you know how to manipulate the vocab to suit you and to kind of show off and get a few extra marks. You also need to express how you feel about this situation. So you might be really happy, you might be really sad, you might be really annoyed, you might be really disappointed. And then go into more detail about what's happening. So if the party was cancelled, you might say, I'm so disappointed that the party has been cancelled. It's because of the snow and the ice. Now what do? I'm so disappointed, and I had all this food prepared. I wanted to dance and sing with my friends all night long, and now I have to spend my evening in front of the television with my parents. I'm so annoyed. And then try and kind of maybe think about what is going to happen, what possible outcome is going to come from that. Or you might say something like, oh, well, I have to look on the bright side. You know, life goes on. You might use a proverb or an expression that's relevant to that question. Think about the tenses that you are going to use and try not to write the entire piece in one tense. So you're not writing, dear diary, I am angry, I am having a party tonight, okay? Try and say, I'm so angry, I had organized a party, my friends will come, or my friends would have come, if you could even do that. So mes amis auraient or étaient venus. And the tenses are important because you're really showing off the grammar and the structures that you can use. And that again will put you in a higher points bracket when it comes to being graded. Okay. Try to conclude strongly with a sentence that ties in with the question. So the party has been cancelled. So you might say again, oh, I'm going to spend the evening in front of the TV with my parents. It's not fair. I wanted to have a big party. Something like this. Okay. And at the end, then you sign off. And you might say à bientôt or amitié and sign your name. Okay, it's important that you have that structure. One thing that you must do, and I'm saying must, is because students sit down and they write and they get halfway through and they realize, no, that's not what I wanted to say, is make a plan. Okay, so before you even look at the question, what vocab do you know? What have you prepared? What have you been practicing for the past few years? Then have a look at the question and go, okay, is it happy or is it sad? If it's happy, scribble down some adjectives to describe that you're happy. If it's angry, scribble down adjectives to do with anger. If it's frustrated, if it's disappointed, okay? Jot down these adjectives, and these adjectives will help you to convey your feelings. You may have prepared some idioms or some proverbs that you just know in your head. Scribble them down again on a rough piece of paper so that you can think about where you might put them into your written piece. Okay, so any sayings, proverbs, okay? And consider the tenses that you are going to use. So if you are in English saying to yourself, I'm so happy, I am having a party, I am eating, I am doing, I am dancing, it's all present tense. And it's not really showing off your capability in the French language. So really think about the tense and see, can you come up with sentences that will show off your language and your ability in French. What tenses do you know? Le présent, I am happy. Le futur proche, I am going to have a party. Le futur simple, I will serve chocolate or popcorn. Okay, all of these tenses you have covered over the past 2 years. And you might be looking at some of these going, oh my God, I don't know that, or do know that, and I don't know them all. I'm not expecting you to be able to use all of these tenses, but they are there. Could you use them? Okay. What other grammar do you know? Adjectives. Adjectives are so good for expressing emotion. Okay. Adverbs. So did you carefully organize a party? You know, finally the day has come for my party. Oh no, it's cancelled. Okay. You could ask a question. What am I going to do? You might make a declaration like, what a nightmare. Quel cauchemar. Okay. Prepositions you will naturally use in your written work, but it is just important to give them a nod there as other grammar. And I'm including as well the comparative and the superlative. Like, so the comparative will be comparing one thing to another, like this is bigger than that, okay? And the superlative then is like the best, the worst. So you might say it's the worst day of my life, or it's the best day of my life. Just considering all of these things, okay? Think of it almost like a mathematical equation where you are trying to show off all of the language that you have spent the last few years working on. Vocab for your Journal Intime. Feel free to take a screenshot of this. Your opening will be Mon cher Journal Intime. It might be Cher Journal. It's up to you. I wouldn't bother changing it all of the time. Like, just stick to the one, okay? Bon is kind of like so, right? So, bon. And then you start to explain the situation. Je viens de is the recent past. I have just. And it's also always followed by an infinitive verb. So, je viens de rentrer chez moi. I've just gotten home. I'm going to stick with my question there about the party being cancelled. So, je viens de rentrer chez moi et je suis si déçue. I'm so disappointed. Okay. Je viens d'avoir de mauvaises nouvelles. I would avoid repeating the je viens de there. So if I've just gotten home and I have bad news, it's not that I just got home and I just got bad news and I just did this and I just did that. You're not really showing off your grammar there. So, je viens de rentrer chez moi et j'ai de mauvaises nouvelles. Je suis très triste parce que ma mère or mes parents viennent de me dire. So I'm so sad because la fête est annulée. The party is cancelled. Okay. And then you might jump into some sad language like j'ai fondu en larmes. I burst into tears. You can see the je viens de is there again, but avoid overusing it. Okay. Je suis triste. I'm sad. Je suis déçu. I am disappointed. What a disappointment. So you're filling it up with a bit of drama. Quelle déception. Je me sens si blessée. I feel so hurt. Okay, that would be probably to do more with an emotion. Okay, or you might say it's not true. Ce n'est pas vrai. It's not true. It's been snowing since 5 o'clock this morning and I'm having trouble understanding it. J'ai du mal à le comprendre. D'accord? When you're finished writing it, you're going to use a closing, and I'm only giving you one example here because I say to my own students, pick a closing and stick with that every single time you write a diary entry, because the more you practice it like that, the easier it will be to write. Okay. Lots of happy adjectives there. I am delighted. Je suis ravie. Baba, another one for ravie. Aux anges, like I'm with the angels. I'm on cloud 9. La terre ne me porte plus. It's like I'm on cloud 9. The ground can no longer carry me. Okay. Thinking about tense, c'est, it is, c'était, it was, ce sera, it will be, ce serait, it would be. Okay. Adjectives, génial, chouette, extra, sans sas, formidable. Don't repeat. Don't say génial twice. Avoid your bon. Okay. It's the same as your English teacher will say, don't say good. They're sick of hearing good. There are so many adjectives to describe something that is good. Okay. Le meilleur jamais is the best ever. Incroyable, incredible, inoubliable, unforgettable. Je suis excitée, I'm excited. Il me tarde de. And the inf there is an infinitive verb. So I can't wait to, or I'm looking forward to. Il me tarde d'aller au concert en été. I'm looking forward to going to the concert in the summer. All's well, or everything went well. Tout s'est bien passé. Je l'attends avec impatience is I am waiting for it with patience or impatience. And avoid saying I cannot wait. Je ne peux pas attendre. It's very, very English to say that when you have other ways of saying it, okay? So you'll use either il me tarde or je l'attends avec impatience. You can also say j'ai hâte de, I'm looking forward to. Je ne vois le temps passer, time flies. Je ne l'oublierai jamais, I will never forget it. Okay, all really happy, positive kind of vocab. And then the angry ones. Je suis fâché, en colère, angry. You might be angry against your parents, or your parents might be angry with you. A nice idiom to use, j'ai vu rouge, I saw red. We use that in English as well. J'ai perdu la tête, I lost the head. J'en ai marre, I am fed up. Il refuse de me laisser, plus infinitif. So the INF there again is an infinitive verb. So they're refusing to let me go to the party. Il refuse de me laisser aller à la fête. Je ferai de mon mieux, future tense, I will do my best. C'est immonde, it's unreal, but it's a really negative. I know we use unreal in English to describe something that's like amazing, but in French, it's immonde, it's like really, really unbelievable, unreal. Il me traite comme un bébé, they treat me like a baby. A nice subjunctive phrase, I don't think it is fair. Je ne pense pas que ce soit juste. I'm going to see a few more subjunctives later on in the opinion pieces. Learn that one off by heart, okay? Je ne pense pas que ce soit juste. I don't think it's fair. You might not think it's fair that we are using so much plastic and destroying the environment. So you could use it in your opinion piece as well. And watch out if you are saying je pense que in the affirmative, I think that, then you will not use the subjunctive, okay? So just watch out for that one and make sure that it is the subjunctive in the negative, okay? What's the point? À quoi bon plus an infinitive verb. And another nice phrase is when all of your plans have fallen apart, tous mes projets sont tombés à l'eau, they've fallen into the water. So some great vocab there that you could use. And I would be pretty certain if you learned off the vocab on that slide, you would be well equipped to write a diary entry in the Leaving Cert. Some idioms, okay? So idioms are phrases that don't really make sense. There's a bit of interpretation going on with them. I'm going to give you a second here just to read through them and take a look at these idioms. They're written in French and English, but they're not direct translations. They tend to have something a bit strange about them, or the language just doesn't make sense. And they do just need to be learned off by heart. So when it comes to idioms, don't overload your Journal Intime with idioms. Remember, you don't have that many words. It might say 75 or 90 words in the question. I always tell my students to aim for 100 words, but don't start writing, you know, they got up on their high horses, but you have to look on the bright side because that's a weight off my shoulders. It's nobody speaks like that, okay? So if you can use one, it's really, really useful. And the shorter ones are probably more common, the likes of je me demande, à demain, see tomorrow, je suis déçu, I'm disappointed, quelle bonne nouvelle, what good news, je viens d'apprendre une nouvelle vraiment, and add an adjective there, I've just learned, or I'm after learning something news, okay? Je me sens seul, I feel alone, and it's just some really nice idiomatic vocabulary that you can use in your diary. Proverbs, again, like idioms, proverbs are not to be overused. I would say use one towards the end, and you'll see one towards the end of the opinion piece sample that I have. It's not a way, like we don't speak like that. We don't do it in English. You know, you might say to someone, oh, you have a chip on your shoulder, but we don't speak like that all of the time. But it is really, really great if you can use one. One of my favorite is qui vivra verra, time will tell. Rome wasn't built in a day is Paris ne s'est pas fait en un jour. So Paris wasn't built in a day. Whereas when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Il faut hurler avec les loups. You have to howl with the wolves, you know, so it doesn't directly translate. Don't try and learn all of these off by heart, but learning a few of them would help you, and it'd be great if you could include it in your written work. There's another one I really love. Après la pluie, le beau temps. After the rain, the nice weather. And in English, we would say, every cloud has a silver lining. I'm going to move now to opinion pieces. So students in this year in the Leaving Cert, I guess you could hedge your bets that you are going to write 2 opinion pieces. And some of my students feel a lot more comfortable writing 2 opinion pieces over writing a diary entry and an opinion piece. They've had plenty of practice with diary entries, but the more practice you get with the opinion pieces, the more comfortable you might feel with them. And you might decide, no, I'm just going to do 2 opinion pieces, and hopefully I will understand the questions that come up. Maybe take a look at the mock paper that you would have done and see, could you have answered 2 opinion pieces and stayed away from the diary entry? It's up to you to decide what you are going to focus on. So an opinion piece is a piece of writing that's about 100 words. It's usually on an abstract topic. So it's not necessarily a topic that's a bit more mundane, but it's something that you will have to give your opinion on. I'll be giving you some predictions for the Leaving Cert in a few moments. But this opinion piece, or opinion pieces in general, they need to be structured a certain way. And I find that my students have a tendency to write far too much in an opinion piece, and they really struggle to be concise. Okay, so how do you structure your opinion piece? So you have an introduction, which might be 2 to 3 sentences, more likely 2. You will then make 2 or 3 detailed points. If it's something that has a problem, you might want to propose a possible solution. And then you have a conclusion that is 2 to 3 sentences long. So you're not going into grave detail, and you really are trying to be as concise as possible. Use opinion piece vocabulary. Use link words, conjunctions, use expressions, and make sure that you consider the tenses that you're using, the idioms, and the proverbs that you could possibly use in the piece. So here's a little infographic that I use with my students. When you sit down to do an opinion piece, how should you approach the question? Okay, so before you look at the question, ask yourself, what opinion piece vocabulary do I know? Je pense que, je crois que, je suis d'avis que, personnellement, premièrement, deuxièmement, de plus. Okay, there's so much that you could use. You could learn off tons and tons and tons and tons. Do you need to know it all? No. Okay, but write down what you know. I say make a list of tenses. Some students really struggle with this, but even just write down present, past, future, conditional. Okay, subjunctive, maybe you might have a phrase that you've learned off by heart, like il faut que je fasse or pour que je puisse. That's a subjunctive phrase that you can use, and it will tick the subjunctive box. No one speaks in the subjunctive at all times. 1 sentence is enough. Okay, next thing you do is you take a look at your question. What's it on? Homelessness, environment, education, sport. What vocabulary do you know on that topic? Okay, and we'll see a sample answer in a few minutes that will take us through that. Your plan. How are you going to structure this? What is the question asking you? Some students start writing and then they go completely off on a tangent. They're not answering the question anymore. They go off target. They start losing loads of marks for communication, and they come up with a conclusion that has nothing to do with the question. Those students did not make a plan. So it's really important that you make a plan. What do you want to say? Okay? Because you've so much time in the Leaving Cert this year, write it on a rough piece of paper. Underline the tenses, circle the adjectives. What could you change? What could you do different? Could you include a proverb? Could you include more idiomatic vocabulary? Have you answered the question? Keep the question in your mind. Once you've written your rough draft, edit, 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 and then produce the piece that you are going to submit as part of your exam. On the next slide, I have an example of some opinion piece vocabulary. And I'll just go through it here. Feel free to take a screenshot. Je dois dire que, I must say that. Par exemple, and watch out for exemple here. Lots of students spell the exemple like example in English. Malheureusement, and I've just noticed I've malheureusement in twice, unfortunately. C'est un problème grave et croissant. It's a really serious and growing problem. So what are you talking about? Are you talking about global warming? Le réchauffement climatique est un problème grave et croissant. What you want to show the examiner is that, yes, I've learned off this vocab, but secondly, I'm able to manipulate it to suit the question. So on its own, it's a serious and growing problem is a sentence, okay? But you need to try and see, can you include the topic-specific vocab there, okay? Le passé composé, that should not be there. That's randomly thrown in. I apologize. When you're adding more information, you might say en plus, so as well. Je pense que, je crois que, je trouve que. 3 ways of saying the same thing. I think that, I believe that, I find that. Okay. You may have said premièrement, first of all. If you said premièrement, you have to say deuxièmement, second of all. Okay. You can use deuxièmement without having used premièrement. So you might make a point and then you might add to it. Secondly, blah, 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 blah. Heureusement, fortunately. Finalement, when you come to the end, finally. Je crois que, I believe that. Ça ne fait aucun doute que, it's without a doubt that, okay? Or you might say cela, this is without a doubt that, okay? Les gens ignorent souvent ce problème. People often ignore this problem. Il est nécessaire de, it's necessary to. Pour commencer, to begin. Pour finir, to finish. Ainsi que ça, as well as that. Tout d'abord, first of all. À mon avis, in my opinion. Je suis d'accord, I agree. Malheureusement, we had already, unfortunately. Il est évident que, it is evident that, it is clear that. C'est inacceptable, it's unacceptable. And le problème augmente, the problem is increasing. Okay, that's just a sample of opinion piece vocabulary. You will have received your own from your teacher. Maybe there's a few there that you find are a little bit more accessible that you might like to use, and you might try to learn them off by heart. And coming back to this slide once again, tenses and grammar. What tenses can you use? What tenses do you know? Not all of the tenses here are suitable to an opinion piece, but we'll see them being used now in a few moments when we look at a sample answer. Connectives. Connectives are wonderful because they really enrich your vocabulary. So if I say, I like chocolate cake, it is nice. What connective could you use in between the two sentences? I like chocolate cake because it is nice, okay? Try to use connectives where possible in your French written work. It really shows off how you can add and make your vocabulary much more fruity, shall I say. It enriches your vocabulary. So feel free to take a screenshot there of that one, and it will hopefully help you to add to your vocab. So just to finish up on the opinion piece, try to be as clear and concise as possible with your points. Don't be vague or ambiguous. Keep the focus. Keep asking yourself the question and stick to answering it. So the question we're going to look at today is that education is important in order to be successful in life. So if you start off with your point about the question, but in the next paragraph, you're talking about, I study French and English and history and maths. I want to go to university to study accountancy. There's nothing to do with the question, Okay, yeah, it's about education, but it's nothing to do with the question. So really try to stick to it and really avoid any waffle or irrelevant material. Some students panic and they're like, oh, I only know this, I have to say this. But try and avoid that, and having a good plan will really help you to avoid waffle. And be ready, study, have lots of different topics prepared. One really useful technique is to sit down and just write a topic at the top of the page and try and write down as many words as possible about that topic, and then move to a new one. So you might start with social media, move to sport, write down all the words you can think of that might be useful in an opinion piece. Even do it for opinion piece vocabulary. What words do you know? So here's your plan. You're given a question. What opinion piece vocab do you know? Think about tense. Write down the topic specific vocabulary. Make a plan and then write it. And I would always say do a rough draft. And once you've written it, go back and edit it. So let's take a look now at this sample answer. L'éducation est importante pour réussir dans la vie. Qu'en pensez-vous? So the broader topic here is education. We can see that clearly. It's the same word as English, okay? Sit down, plan, brainstorm. I haven't included my plan with my opinion piece vocab and stuff like that here just because there's no space on the page, but sit down and maybe write out the question in English. Make sure that you've actually understood it. So I've written question, education is important in order to be successful in life. What do you think? Okay, so what do I think? Yeah, you need an education to get a job. You might get a good salary. If you have a good job and a good salary, you will live a good life. You will have a better quality of life. You might be happier. Education teaches you to read and write. Having an education teaches you how to take care of yourself. You might be more disciplined. You gain social skills by having a good education. You learn how to manage your time. You have lots of responsibilities. You learn lots of life skills. It makes your brain work, and the stuff that you learn is interesting. So I've loads of ideas about education here. And my question is answering, does it give you success in life? Okay. So I'm going to start by taking a look at this opinion piece. I'm going to read through it and translate it, and then we'll go back and kind of analyze it just to show you how this can help you. A piece like this will score you good marks. Personnellement, je suis d'avis que l'éducation est primordiale pour avoir de la réussite dans la vie. Personally, I am of the opinion that education is extremely important, primordially important, in order to have success in life. Premièrement, avec une bonne éducation, on peut trouver un meilleur emploi avec un super salaire et vivre une excellente qualité de vie. First of all, with a good education, one can find a better job with a super salary and live an excellent quality of life. Deuxièmement, secondly, l'apprentissage donne la capacité de lire, écrire et compter. Secondly, learning gives the capacity or the ability to read, write, and count. De plus, on apprend aussi des compétences sociales, de la discipline, comment prendre soin de soi, comment gérer son temps et ses responsabilités, tout en travaillant le cerveau. Moreover, or adding in more information, one also learns social skills, discipline, how to take care of oneself, how to manage your time and your responsibilities, whilst working the brain. Pour conclure, to conclude, il va sans dire qu'une bonne éducation aide à progresser dans la vie pour de nombreuses raisons. Je sais que j'ai de la chance car je peux aller à l'école tous les jours. So to conclude, it goes without saying that a good education helps to progress in life for many reasons. I know that I am lucky because I can go to school every day. J'espère pouvoir aller à l'université pour que je puisse trouver un bon métier à l'avenir et me sentir une personne accomplie. Qui vivra, verra. I hope to be able to go to university so that I can find a good career or profession in the future and feel like an accomplished person. Qui vivra, verra is a lovely proverb. Time will tell, or we will see. We'll see what happens. Okay, so as you read through that, what do you notice? So I've got some really nice opinion piece vocabulary. Personnellement, personally. Je suis d'avis que, I am of the opinion that. Premièrement, firstly. Deuxièmement, secondly. De plus, moreover, adding in more information. Pour conclure, to finish, it is without a doubt, il va sans dire que. And the last phrase then is a nice proverb, qui vivra, verra. Okay. The other things that are in black then, I've highlighted more so the grammar here. So we have the present tense, est and done. Okay. Or je sais, I know. Okay. On peut trouver. I'm keeping it neutral by using one can. Okay. In English, a lot of times say you can get a job, you can go to college, you can do this, you can do that. In French, stick to on and you conjugate the verb via the il and elle, the same conjugation as il and elle. One can find, on peut trouver. On apprend, one learns. Okay. Then we have a present participle in the end of the second paragraph. Tout en travaillant le cerveau, by working the brain. En travaillant. Je sais que j'ai, so I know that I have luck or I am lucky. Je peux aller, there's our pouvoir again with an infinitive verb. And then a really nice triple verb phrase. Okay, triple verb phrases. I hope to be able to go. J'espère pouvoir aller. Okay, and once you've used the first verb, j'espère, you can use a modal verb followed by any other verb, and those second and third verbs stay in the infinitive. Okay, I hope to be able to go. You might say, j'espère pouvoir réussir dans la vie. I hope to be able to be successful or succeed in life. And the last one that I've highlighted in black there is a nice subjunctive phrase, pour que je puisse. And I always tell my students, try and imagine it as one word, write it down phonetically, pour que je puisse, pour que je puisse, pour que je puisse, so that I can. It's a great one to use in your written work, and it really shows off that you know the subjunctive and you give that nod to the subjunctive. Pour que je puisse plus an infinitive, so that I can find a good job. Look at the structure. I've used 3 paragraphs. Okay, I have an introduction. I'm developing my points, and I'm talking about having these skills and all of these things that we get when we have an education, and how having all of these things help you to proceed and to progress in life. So my second paragraph is what education gives you, and my third paragraph that concludes kind of takes the question, education is important to be successful, except it says a good education helps to progress in life. Then I use my own personal experience. I'm lucky that I get to go to school, and I hope that with my education, I can progress, I can go on to university, find a good job, and feel like an accomplished person. Time will tell. Qui vivra, verra. D'accord? So that's a nice sample answer that you could use on the topic of education. I'm going to finish up now by leaving you with some predictions for Leaving Cert French 22. So this is very simply, these are predictions. I have absolutely no idea what is going to come up. I have consulted with some colleagues of mine to see what they think. And it's really a tough one to know what comes up, but we can only guess and live in hope that if you were to cover these topics and prepare them and study them, that you might be lucky on the day and what you think was going to come up comes up. So the first thing is the pandemic. It's clearly obvious that the pandemic will come up, but it might not be an explicit thing in a question. What I think could happen is you'll be given a question that doesn't mention the pandemic, but if you have lots of vocab prepared on the pandemic, you'll be able to tie that into the question that you're asked. Okay, so you might be asked about you know, you have to eat healthily in order to live a long life, and you might be able to tie in something about COVID and slowing down of life and eating well and taking the time to prepare meals in order to live a long and happy life. Okay, I'm just thinking off the top of my head there. I don't know, was that a very good example? But some of the things that I do think may come up in relation to the pandemic is le télétravail, which is working from home. And again, it might be le télétravail, it might be travailler à la maison, it might be travailler à domicile. There's a few ways to say it. The second one is l'apprentissage en ligne. Online learning. And again, it's relevant to young people. It's something that you could talk about and give your own personal experience of. Is it the same, or the advantages and disadvantages of online learning, the advantages and disadvantages of working from home? Health, and I've put health in there, not in relation to COVID, but that you could tie in COVID, in that you might give your personal opinion about exercise and eating well, that during the pandemic, I took the time to prepare my food and I exercised more. Or what will life be like after the pandemic? What has changed? And another one I came across was la vie quotidienne est perturbée. So daily life has been changed or kind of perturbed, disturbed. Okay, what do you think? What has happened? And can you talk about how life has changed? Of course you can. The pandemic has changed everything. The second topic I think might come up is l'environnement, the environment. It is one that has come up many times before, le changement climatique, climate change, Greta Thunberg, les déchets et la pandémie. I'm tying in the pandemic again. I have come across some articles in the newspapers in France about waste and the pandemic, and you know, the discarding of masks and all of the PPE and plastic that's been wasted because of COVID. We must save the planet. Il faut sauver la planète. La mode éphémère, fast fashion. And that ties into the planet as well, because young people, or people in general, tend to spend a lot of money on clothes and not wear them that much. L'utilisation de la plastique dans les emballages alimentaires, the use of plastic in food wrapping. Another one, food waste and food wrapping. It is a possibility that will come up, and it's to do with the environment. C'est un problème croissant. It's a growing problem. You might use that kind of phrase. It has been suggested to me that l'Union Européenne will come up. The EU, the presidencies in France, I don't know that will come up, but the topic of being European might come up. So nationalism, being Irish, but then on a broader scale, what does it mean? C'est quoi être européen? What does it mean to be European? Does it mean that we all work together, we support each other, we, you know, tolerance, integration, helping one another? Okay. Les vacances et les voyages, holidays and traveling. Again, you could tie in the pandemic because you probably haven't traveled that much in the last 2 years. Les trottinettes électriques, electric scooters. I've put that in there because I really thought it would come up last year and it didn't. So I've put it in, and it may be something that will come up. You might write about the advantages and disadvantages of scooters. Like, it's easy to get around. You get around quicker. Disadvantage, you have to charge them. You might decide that they're dangerous. Another broad topic is la santé, health, la santé physique et mentale, physical and mental health, l'obésité, obesity, le sport, sport, l'alcoolisme, alcoholism, les drogues, drugs, and le stress. And le stress parmi les jeunes, it might be stress among young people, it might be stress to do with the pandemic, or l'anxiété, l'angoisse, anxiety. L'égalité, equality. Il faut lutter pour l'égalité homme-femme. We have to fight for equality between men and women. I'm putting that in because in recent years, we've seen a lot about sexual harassment, the Me Too movement, and women fighting for their place in society or recognition. Another one that was proposed by a colleague is la loi contre la maltraitance des animaux. This did actually come up one year. It was a picture of an elephant with some chains around its feet. So it's the law against the mistreatment of animals, and there has been new legislation law that has been brought forward, I think in the EU, if I'm not wrong. Les réseaux sociaux, always a huge topic. Social media, will it come up? I don't know. The influence of celebrities, possibly, the influence of social media on young people, the influence of social media on mental health. We don't know what's going to happen. La technologie à l'école, technology in school. Les tablettes tactiles came up one year, touchscreen tablets in schools in particular. The advantages and disadvantages of technology in schools. You would obviously give your own personal opinion. Do you like using technology in school? Does it help you with your learning? L'éducation et la réussite dans la vie, that's the sample answer that I've looked at. So this is a broader topic of education, but education and success in life. Les stages, work experience, internships, maybe the importance of them and what you learn from them. Or it could be a question which has come up before, that you don't need an education. You don't need to go to university in order to be successful in life. And another huge one, le harcèlement scolaire, school bullying. And I'm putting that in there because Emmanuel Macron, the French president, did bring in national laws a few months ago in relation to bullying, and obviously bullying is something that has become quite problematic in recent years because of the online nature. And I mean, when I was in school, bullying ended at 4 o'clock when you went home because nobody could contact you, whereas it spills out into social media and it's very difficult to escape now. Les SDF, les sans-abri, homelessness, la politique, politics, and voter. Again, something that may come up, a very simple question like you must vote in order to have your voice heard. Other people have proposed other topics. Again, I can't write them all down and I don't want to bombard you with ideas, but these are just some suggestions for this year's Leaving Certificate. So that's kind of summing up what I wanted to talk about today. Feel free to go back over the video and click on any of the slides and take a screenshot, particularly the predictions, the idioms, the proverbs, or even just the plan stuff for how to write a diary entry and how to write an opinion piece. Many thanks for watching today. For more tips and more support for your Leaving Cert, please do follow us on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. And I would appreciate any feedback or questions that you have. Feel free to pop them into the comment section of whatever platform you are watching this on. Thanks very much, guys. I wish you une très bonne chance, best of luck in your Leaving Cert, and I hope you are successful in the future.